Good evening. I'd like to open the special town meeting of November 17th, 2020. My name is Ken Muty. I am the Yarmouth Town Moderator, and it's a true honor to serve this community in this role for the first time. Welcome, and it certainly is a special time by anybody's definition. While normally we would begin with my long speech and numerous events of pageantry, these times are anything but normal. So we will proceed to our agenda due to these very unusual circumstances with several modifications, which I'll talk to in a few minutes, or in less than a few minutes. But I do commit to you that on behalf of our elected officials, dedicated staff, volunteers, and those who put this meeting together under very trying circumstances to keep us all organized and safe, that we will do our best to fulfill the 2 C's that I believe are necessary for a town meeting. Those 2 C's are democracy and efficiency. So we can't thank you enough for coming out tonight, and we want to make sure that the meeting is meaningful, but also recognize the circumstances we're in. So let me first begin with a few introductions. I'd like to start with our select board. To my left is Chairman Mark Forrest, then Mike Stone, Dan Horgan, Tracy Post, and Eric Tolley. To my immediate right is our new town clerk, Mary Maslowski. And I should acknowledge, I think a few of you realize we had an election a few weeks ago. I think our town came through with flying colors and with a brand new clerk, and what a crack staff she has. I think we should recognize how smoothly that went. It wasn't easy. To my further right is our Finance Committee Chairman, Brian Gardner, with to his right, Sarah Coles, Stephanie Cox, and Nathan Ladley. A few other members could not be present tonight. So let's begin the official proceedings by honoring our nation by standing and pledging allegiance to America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a little bit of a modification tonight, and let me go through what that is. In order to expedite this meeting, and in light of the recent increases in COVID-19 cases, the board has determined to move to postpone indefinitely the following articles: 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Those articles, including the petitioned articles with the consent of the petitioners, will be placed on the spring town meeting warrant. Further, I'll use my discretion tonight to take them in a single motion as a consent agenda. I will call out the articles, and anyone who wishes to debate a particular article rather than postpone it may call out hold. That article may then be debated in the normal course. But we'll start with Article number 1 to be presented by Chairman Forrest.
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 1 as printed in the warrant, and as such move to transfer $1,824,280 from free cash for the delineated purposes.
Do we have a position from the Select Board?
Selectmen recommend.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommend.
Explanation?
Mr. Moderator, this article includes capital funding for various town departments. These capital requests were deferred at our annual town meeting due to the coronavirus pandemic. Now that free cash has been certified at $5.4 million for fiscal year 20, the Capital Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen have determined that the following requests are necessary and within our goals for fiscal restraint. This year, the roadway and sidewalk funding is being funded differently due to anticipated reductions in receipts. Funding will come from free cash. It is the board's intent to return the roadways and sidewalk funding to the regular levy when local receipts recover. In order to maintain operating funds within the levy, it was determined that the best course of action would be to fund this work from the free cash that was recently certified. When receipts improve, the funding will again return to the levy.
Thank you, Chairman Forrest. Do we have any questions or comments? I should point out there are microphones, 2 in the back at the end of each aisle, and there are 2 each in the front for a total of 4. Each microphone will be cleaned and disinfected by one of our firefighters following any comment or questions. Are there any? We have a motion. Mr. Holcomb, do you? There should be some over there. Well, wherever there.
Good evening. Can you hear me clearly?
I should ask if make sure you identify your name and your precinct.
My name is Norman Holcomb. I'm in Precinct 1. I have a couple of questions. First of all, some are new capital requests that I don't believe were before any board during the Springtown meeting. The town charter requires a capital hearing. Has that requirement been met?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Could you repeat that last portion of your question? Or
The town charter provisions, section 7 or 8, I'm not sure which it is, requires a capital hearing with regard to the capital plans to be put forth for budgeting for the year. Has that requirement been met?
I believe so, but are you interested in the date of the hearing? Is
Yes.
that? Does anybody on the board, or Dan, do you have? We can provide that information to you. We don't have it readily available, but we can.
I think it's pretty essential to the process since the charter requires it. Otherwise, this is not a legitimate request.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
The only new item that is in that is an HVAC engineering and design, $280,000. That is a new ask. That is for the police department headquarters. The air handling equipment is in very difficult condition there, and that is an emergency request. This did get in front of capital budget as it relates and also went through Finance Committee. The other items, as you can see with an asterisk, had been pre-approved at the Springtown meeting, or excuse me, at the spring hearing by the Capital Budget Committee. And these items were put on hold because of the COVID-19 budget situation, with the caveat that we would revisit these when the local receipts or free cash would become available.
So the answer is no, there's not been a capital hearing. All right. Then I guess
We have.
the other question I have is with regard to the intention to restore funds to the levy. The question is, what have the funds been used for that that were in the levy to start with? Because I think, as the board is aware, the $1 million that was set aside for road and walk upkeep was put in the levy by removing or by replacing debt exclusions that expired. So the debt exclusion expired. We had a town meeting in which we allocated those funds with an override. So what this is saying is that then you're going to come back and ask for a tax increase in order to fund those roadway improvements.
No, that's not the case.
How is that going to be accomplished?
No. Dan?
Can you hear me now? Yeah, all right. Pat Armstrong, Director of Community Services and the Staff Liaison with the Capital Budget Committee. On October 15th, 2020, these items were reviewed by the Capital Budget Committee and approved, and so there was a hearing on these particular items.
Was that a public hearing?
It was posted, and it is a public hearing.
It would have been a posted public meeting. As it relates to the budgetary question, as you recall, Mr. Holcomb, the town, when it set its budget, reduced local receipts to the tune of $6 million, 33%, and also state aid by, I believe it was over 25%, with the idea that those items, specifically roadway and sidewalk money and the balance of the capital from the levy would sometime return to the levy when local receipts recovered. As of right now, we still do not obviously know because we're in the fiscal year now. We don't know where local receipts are going to end up. So we are behind in property tax collections. We are behind in excise tax revenue. Meals tax we're behind in. One area that we are in advance in is the short-term rental. Once the springtime comes around, an adjustment can be made, but in order to balance the budget and pay for operating expenses, the decision was made to put those two particular items, the 1.5 million in capital and the roughly 2 or 3 million for roadway work into hold pattern until we got free cash certified. Free cash became available about a month ago. It's at $5.4 million, and that's why the request is here tonight.
So again, I'm not sure on the, was there a posted public hearing with regard to capital?
Last spring, we had a posted public hearing on all those capital items.
So these items have not been presented to.
They were presented to the Capitol as part of a public hearing last spring, with the exception of the police department item.
Are there any more questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor, express your aye. All opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. Article 2,
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from available funds in the DPW Water Division Reserve Fund balance a sum of $1,716,257, with $205,000 for well development and $1,511,257 for facility improvements for capital expenses of the Water Division, including maintenance of the plant, well field, and equipment pursuant to the Acts of 1928, Chapter 146, or under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 69B.
do we have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The board recommends.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
Further explanation? Do we have a, do we have a second? Do we?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? We have a question in the back.
Oh, is it working? Oh, yeah, so Peter Morris, Precinct 1. Was there a recent reprint of this article? Because the copy that I have, I think all it shows is well redevelopment at $205,000 and facility improvements for $3 million. What was read was different than what I have, apparently.
I understand.
Yes, Mr. Knappich?
Yes, I'll recognize Mr. Colby to answer that question.
Hello? Yes, the answer to the question is, this is a bid-in-hand type of project, and the bids came in lower. The $3 million was what was the engineer's estimate, and the bids came in so that the project only needs $1,511,000 to complete the project. So for that reason, it's lower than the number printed in the warrant.
Oh, so there was, I picked up the warrant at Town Hall last week, and so there's been a more recent update, in other words, right?
Yes, subsequently bids have been opened for this project, and it came in lower.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? We have a motion's been made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Article 3,
Mr. Moderator, I move Article 3 as printed in the warrant.
Select Board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Each year, the Capital Budget Committee, appointed by the Finance Committee, reviews and evaluates requests for capital projects and equipment submitted by all our town departments. This article contains recommended expenditures such as equipment, physical plant repairs by departments that have reserved earning funds. These items will be funded by the fire ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation waste management recycling fund and the golf enterprise retained earnings.
Recommendation from the Select Board.
Is we recommend.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommend.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Article 4 will be presented by Selectman Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move Article 4 as printed in the warrant.
Select Board.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Any questions, comments? We have a motion, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. Article 5, Selectman Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 39M, which establishes a special municipal water infrastructure investment fund that may be appropriated and spent for maintenance, improvements, and investments to municipal drinking, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure assets, and further to approve a property tax surcharge in the amount of 0.78% of the taxes assessed annually on real property, which will be dedicated to the fund. The surcharge to be imposed starting with taxes assessed for fiscal year 2022 beginning July 1st, 2021.
Thank you. Select Board.
Recommends.
Finance Committee.
Recommends.
We have any comments or questions?
Can I give an explanation, Mr. Moderator?
Yep. Yes.
The Water Resource Advisory Committee recommends the adoption of this fund as a mechanism to pay the debt service costs of implementing the town's wastewater plans. Adopting this fund would result in a 0.78% property tax surcharge similar to the Community Preservation Act property tax surcharge, which is now at 3%. To be effective, adoption of this fund also requires a majority vote at the town election. By law, this fund is separate and distinct from other town funds and operating budget and can only be used for maintenance, improvements, and investments to municipal drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater assets. All proceeds from the adopted surcharge are deposited directly into the fund and can only be utilized by further appropriation by a majority vote at town meeting. The amount of this surcharge generates approximately $500,000 of additional revenue. This surcharge will be offset by a corresponding exemption for the surcharge charged by the Community Preservation Act. I will, Mr. Moderator, add that this article is to be considered really in conjunction with the following article, Article 6, which will exempt from the property tax assessment the first $100,000 of value to offset the $500,000 that will be generated as a result of the passage of Article 5. And again, this measure must also be passed at the ballot as well as at this meeting.
Thank you. We'll take these combined and separately at the same time. We have a couple of questions for the beginning. The gentleman in the red jacket will start.
Okay. My name is Lee Hawkins, from Precinct 7. My question is really in the offset, why it was done the way it is. It's done by an exemption to the CPA of $100,000 rather than reducing the CPA rate. The problem and the concern I have with it is that this is not tax neutral for any resident property that's over the median value of properties in town. For those of us who are above the median, this results in an immediate tax increase that do not offset. The other concern is it also makes the CPA effectively a progressive tax as opposed to the kind of flat rate. This is because the $100,000 has a diminishing effect as your valuation increases. So I just question why it was done that way. It would seem fair to me had you reduced the CPA to 2.22% so that the two would balance for everybody. Thank you.
I can take that.
I think I heard a question, which is basically why have the exemption as opposed to a change to the whole CPA mechanism,
Yes.
full funding. Mr. Centeo, would you like to address that? Or anyone else?
Ed's gonna, I might add something there, we'll see. I can answer that.
Hello, Ed Centio, Finance Director, Town Yarmouth. From what I understand, this particular mechanism was a compromise with the Community Preservation Act Committee, where they wanted to retain the ability to get a maximum amount of a state match for their CPA. And by maintaining the 3%, that maximizes the match from the state. So I think, as you indicated, that was contemplated, but on the other hand, the town gets additional CPA money by using the exemption as opposed to reducing the CPA rate. Okay, I guess my concern then is that this does raise taxes for half the people in town. Yeah, so not half, actually 73% to 75% of the taxpayers in the town will pay the same or less. As you indicated, once you get above a certain value, you will pay slightly more, perhaps in the magnitude of $50 per year if you have $1 million property. And then it goes up slightly from there. My calculations are higher than that. But in any event, the concern is this is a fund that can easily go to 3%. And it's going to be even worse when you raise it to those levels. But again, it was a compromise between different groups as they wanted to figure out how to fund the wastewater or clean water infrastructure fund and not have as dramatic an impact on the Community Preservation Act funds. Okay.
Thank you. Another question? Sir?
Yeah, Vincent Cervantes, Precinct 1, and I echo the comments of the other citizen there. Yeah, I think that both of these articles are written incorrectly, and I really don't care about the matching funds with the Community Preservation Act, because you never know what the state is going to do. I mean, they could reverse themselves tomorrow on what these matching funds are going to be. And I would advocate both of these be voted down, both of these articles 5 and 6, because they just don't match up. And there's no guarantee that in next year or the year after, the property values aren't going to go up. And when that does, then everybody is going to be subject to this property tax increase, essentially is what it is. And then we're both going to be stuck because we voted for it here. That's why I really going to advocate that we vote these down until both of the mechanisms that are in this matchup, not with some arbitrary dollar amount on one and a percentage increase on the other. So yeah, I understand your argument regarding the state, but who knows what they're going to do. So that's just a statement. It's not really a question, so I advocate voting both of these down. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, can I respond, please?
Yes.
Tracy? Hi. I appreciate your comments. I think that it's very important to know that this is just one piece of the puzzle in our wastewater planning. As you know, many years ago, we brought an article here that failed, and we've been stalled in our planning to reduce nitrogen in our community. We gave staff a directive to try to accomplish this being as tax neutral as possible. We understand people are struggling. We were trying to do it without raising taxes. So to the extent possible, I understand it gets a little bit complicated, but I think it was a great solution, and this really is going to tell the people of our community where we stand and whether or not we should continue with planning, because we need to somehow fund it without an impact. And to talk about our taxes going up, if we don't reduce nitrogen in our community, I'd venture to say that our property taxes will not be increasing.
Thank you. We have another question.
My name is Brian Dudley, Precinct 7, and I would like to speak in favor of this article and the succeeding article. This infrastructure fund is a creative way to help finance the wastewater infrastructure that we know we're going to have to face and come to grips with in the very near future. And I would argue that any concerns about increased taxes based on increased property value, we're not going to really have to worry about that if we don't fund this, because without proper infrastructure, our property values very likely will go down. Water quality is the lifeblood of Cape Cod, and it is threatened unless we take action. And this is a creative way to help deal with financing. It's been successfully employed in Sandwich, where they have already begun to use it to great effect, despite it only being on the books, I think, for a year or two. So I would encourage everyone to vote in favor of both these articles.
Thank you. Even though there are, the two articles are somewhat tied together, we should take a position separately. But before that, I have to ask on Article 6, the position of the Select Board.
Select Board unanimously recommends both articles.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
Okay. We have a motion made. Do we have, on Article 5, do we have, Article 6, do we have a motion? I believe it's been made by Mr. Stone.
Well,
Or do you
if
want to read?
Article 5 passes, we'll move Article 6 separately. If Article 5 does not pass, we'll move to indefinitely postpone Article 6.
Okay. So we need to take a vote on Article 5.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move Article 6 as amended, to see if the town will vote to adopt the exemption from the property tax surcharge imposed as set forth in Section 3E3 of Chapter 44B of the General Laws, the Community Preservation Act, for $100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of residential real property, and per Section 3E4 for $100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of Class 3 commercial property and Class 4 industrial property as defined in Section 2A of Chapter 59, starting with taxes assessed for fiscal year 2022 beginning July 1st, 2021, provided further that such exemptions are approved by passage of a corresponding ballot question.
Okay, I think we've already validated that the Select Board recommends and the Finance Committee recommends in the interest of transparency. Mr. Snow, would you like to present the explanation?
Yes, thank you. As amended, this article proposes to adopt exemptions from the Community Preservation Act surcharge for residential and commercial and industrial properties. The first $100,000 of residential, commercial, and industrial property values would not be included in the calculation of the CPA surcharge, resulting in a decrease of the total amount assessed to Yarmouth taxpayers by approximately $500,000. The intent of this exemption is to reduce the overall property tax surcharge assessed to taxpayers for CPA in order to offset the impact of adopting the surcharge associated with the Municipal Water Infrastructure Investment Fund in Article 5. To be effective, adoption of this exemption also requires a majority vote at the town election. Due to ballot question timing requirements, the exemption cannot be implemented until fiscal year 2022.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments? I think we do.
Yes, thank you. Norm Holcomb, Precinct 1. I understand that the short-term rental taxes have been substantially higher than they were originally projected, something like $850,000 for the first quarter. Originally, the intent was to allocate those funds to the wastewater planning. And that was dropped, I think, at the Springtown meeting, if I'm correct. And if I'm wrong, please correct that. But, so part of my question is, what happens with the $850,000 that were collected in the first 3 months of this new fiscal year? And number two, has the board committed to putting that $850,000 or whatever the final amount is into the wastewater fund? If not, where is it going to go? And lastly, why not wait and use an excess to support the CPA fund? I mean, there are quite a few options that could be considered if the short-term rental tax comes in substantially higher than originally anticipated.
Anyone, Mr. Administrator? Mr. Centeo?
We have a draft funding policy for wastewater, which will include several different sources of revenue. We've been working on that process for over 5 years, identifying different sources of revenue so that we could try to pay for wastewater without increasing taxes. That's our goal. And part of that policy would be that the short-term rental money should generate additional free cash, as well as some of the other initiatives that we're putting in place. I think you have heard about the Cape Cod Energy Park initiative. There are several other solar initiatives.
And we're looking to have those dollars initially, because they'll result in free cash, voted on by the Board of Selectmen as a policy to be put directly towards the wastewater infrastructure fund. So in addition to the surcharge that we've discussed today, those funds will go into that fund. And then prior to actually securing the bonding for it, we'll then have a legislative act that will say that these funds are dedicated to this purpose. That's not needed initially until we actually bond this, but that will be the intent of the dollars that will result from these additional funds.
Thank you. I think we have one more question? Or one?
Precinct 1. It's really a comment. This is the second article of 6, where the wording that we have in front of us on the printed warrant here is different than what was presented from the stage. Now, this is, I think the same thing sort of happened in the spring, and I wish that we could get our acts together and be, on the same page, everybody, during the meeting, because this, I think this indicates a certain kind of sloppiness or something, I don't know, but I don't think we should be having things like that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yep, go ahead.
Christine Marzigliano, Precinct 7. Article 5 established the Water Infrastructure Fund, and rightly so. We do need sewers, but it's more than sewers to keep the water pure in this town. We need clean water also to protect our drinking water by expanding areas around our well fields. We need to protect and improve the quality of our ponds and streams and rivers. All of this comes from CPA funds. It's not one or the other, it's all three. It's CPA funds that provide the seed money for the design of parks. When we wanted pickleball, park improvements, a splash pad, a handicap playground, all of these funds come from CPA funds that either start the project or fund the project. Open space establishes parks and conservation areas. It brings forth articles to expand our well fields, to improve our drinking water. We preserve wetlands. We preserve wildlife corridors. We establish vista views, such as the Yankee Village site, where an investment of just under $1 million brought in a park grant of $400,000 coming back to open space. The Parkers River Bridge Project, widening the culvert. That seed money came from CPA for the widening of that culvert. Affordable housing project on Route 28, it was CPA seed money that procured the grants that produced this housing project. And we also fund historic renovations that bring in the tourists to visit this wonderful historic town. CPA funds are the start with many of the major capital projects in town. By voting for Article 6, the $100,000 exemption, you will be reducing the amount of CPA funds that the committee receives. Each year, we get article requests for twice as much money as we have, and now you want to reduce CPA funds even further. I would like to have and potentially choose. We can't choose between clean water and protection of wetlands, affordable housing, and playgrounds for kids. We would like to pass all of these articles. Please consider the consequences and vote no on Article 6, reducing CPA funds. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, we have a motion. We have a second on Article 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let me just quickly revisit what we're going to do on Articles 7 through 15 for anyone who came in late and for our worldwide TV audience. In order to expedite the meeting, and in light of the recent increases in COVID cases, we're going to try to move forward through a consent agenda with the consent of the petitioners, and that will be placed on the spring town warrant, Articles 7 through 15. Further, I'll use my discretion to take them in a single motion as a consent agenda. I'll call out the articles, and anyone who wishes to debate a particular article rather than postpone it may call out hold. That article may then be debated in the normal course. Article 7, Article 8, Article 9, saying hold, you can yell out. I'm going to finish them out, and Article, you can tell me which one. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, we have two holds that I heard, one on 15, and Mr. Holcomb.
Yes, thank you. My purpose is not to debate or take a position one way or the other with regard to Article 8. Is to ask that the board or someone come prepared to discuss how much the South Yarmouth Church and the Cape Playhouse are putting into the funding that the purpose that is shown on this schedule. I think it's important for, I'm thinking specifically about the Cape Playhouse that is in Dennis, that we know how much the people that have season tickets are putting in contributions. I think there needs to be some more robust development of the background for things of this nature before it comes before town meeting. My wife and I have been members or had season tickets for, I don't know, it's about 10 years at this point. And we contribute in addition as just a capital or a contribution to their efforts. And I'm concerned that now we're being asked to take public funds from people who don't go there and who don't want to or can't. And we're taking their public funds and dedicating them to what is essentially a private business. And, you know, I think likewise in the case of the community or the South Yarmouth Church, I think it's a wonderful facility. I agree that it's a historic property, but it also has a congregation. And I think the town deserves to know how much the congregation is putting into the similar purposes that the town is funding. It shouldn't be all on the town. It should be the members themselves of the institution. So I think that's important for the town to bring forward as information in the meeting in the spring.
Thank you. If anybody wishes to comment? This is not a motion.
Did someone put a hold on 15?
There's a hold on 15?
Okay, I would like to.
Someone had a question on 15?
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion to indefinitely postpone the following articles, 7 through 14 at this time.
Any further question? We have a motion to postpone Articles 7 through 14. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion for those articles is carried. Is Article 15 still open? Do we have a motion?
Vice Chair, Gulf Enterprise Committee, Precinct 1. The Gulf Enterprise Committee's position is to advise the board on matters regarding Gulf operations and the successful fulfillment of our business plan.
I can't understand you, sir. I'm sorry.
If I take my mask off? Okay. So, Gulf Enterprise Committee has analyzed the warrant for number 15, and we have a few facts that we'd like to add to be discussed when this comes back up for discussion in April. Warrant 15 actually makes some incorrect assumptions in terms of the facts that it's presenting, in terms of its model. The comparison with energy farm utilization at DY High School is not the same as what was being proposed. You have a discrepancy of proposing 46 acres at the links versus 100 acres at DY. The per energy use costs, the per kilowatt income is off by a factor of 10. So it is claiming a $10 million revenue generation, when in fact the actual income generation is probably closer to $1 million. Additionally, there are some other items that are worth mentioning. The land was built and funded with state funding. I believe it's my understanding that in order to reuse that in a commercial enterprise, we would have to replace that land with a like piece of property. We cannot turn the links into a commercial endeavor without taking care of that. That presents obviously a separate problem. Obviously, the links is built on a landfill. It still produces gas underneath. It seems somewhat irresponsible to consider putting an energy creation apparatus on top of something that's still emitting natural gas. The other thing that is probably worth mentioning is that the course uses a significant amount of wastewater. And so if we were to propose to use the links as an energy farm, that would have to be somehow compensated in other means, which presents a logistical problem for us as a town. Lastly, I think that the biggest thing that we can bring to your attention is that converting the links into an energy farm will have a drastic economic impact on Bayberry and Gulf and the town's Gulf in general, particularly with the closure of the Vassar property due to the wastewater project. The links provides an integral part of the golf experience here in Yarmouth, and there would definitely be an economic impact were that no longer to be available. So the recommendation from the GEC is that we would hope that the board would take all of these factors into consideration when they hear this warrant in April, and our position is to not support the conversion of the links into an energy farm.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Moderator, I move to indefinitely postpone Article 15.
No, but I have a question, because we, we voted in Article 3.
Nobody's moved Article 15.
$50,000 to repair a roof of the golf links course, right? The clubhouse? So is this in dire need of the repairs, or what's going on here?
Article 15 is to fund a
I'll second the
study.
motion to
Just so everybody's
indefinitely postpone
clear on
Article
that.
15.
Yes, Mr. Barron has a comment. Again, I'm going to bring everybody's attention that this is to fund a study.
Mr. Moderator, I'm the author of the petitioned article, and the gentleman representing the golf interest is absolutely correct. It should be studied, it should be looked at all aspects, and that's what the article asks for, a full exposition of all of the issues that are involved. There is sufficient time for that to take place, regardless of the work that has to be done at Bass River Golf Course or at Bayberry Hills. The gentleman is correct. It should be studied, and that's all that the article is asking for. But it should be a thorough vetting of all issues. That's all that was asked. Thank you.
Thank you. And
But in the meantime, the roof needs to be fixed, or the clubhouse roof needs to be fixed, is that right?
I don't think that's pertinent to this article.
Well, I mean, that's the property we're talking about, aren't we? The clubhouse is the Bayberry Hills clubhouse.
Selectman Post has made a motion to postpone Article 15. It has been seconded. We'll take one more comment.
Hi. Mark O'Hearn, District 1. Just on the procedural aspect of what we're talking about here, if we postpone it indefinitely until the spring, it comes back to the broader discussion. But conceptually, if we don't approve the indefinite proposal, we could address this issue today at this town meeting. Is that correct, the structure?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Because right now, because we postponed before, so it's here on the floor now. We either vote to talk about it and come up with a resolution now at this meeting, or postpone it. Is that the question that we're trying to decide here?
Procedurally, we proceed with a motion that has been made. So a motion has been made and seconded.
Okay, so if it passes, then it moves on to the spring.
It'll be moved to the spring meeting. That's correct.
But if it doesn't pass, then we talk about it here, come to a vote about it.
Yes.
As long as we talk about the motion, the article, which is funding a study.
Yes. Okay, so if we vote to postpone it, then it's postponed to the spring.
And if we,
No, then we talk about it now.
that's correct. Okay, thank you. We have a motion that's been seconded to postpone Article 15 till the spring meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Is there any? Somebody have a question?
Move to adjourn.
I can't, oh, I'm sorry.
Donna Riley, Precinct 3. I can't imagine that we're even discussing putting a solar farm over
I can't hear her.
capital landfill that is emitting gas. Where's the logic? Can anybody consider?
I didn't really hear the question.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, everyone who came out tonight. Drive carefully, and we'll see you around town.
Where's door 2?
Here, Pat.
Where's door 2? Oh, they got trained up there.
May I